Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. This is The Locker Room Show with Sam Jordan. I'm Keon Rose, filling in for Sam Jordan. And we have a lot to get into today because we've got NFL stuff that I think is very interesting and fascinating. And we also have just a bunch of NBA news. Like the thing about NBA free agency, apparently, is that it doesn't really seem to end. And I mean, I'm totally okay with that. It gets to be kind of difficult in these summer months. But yeah, man, it doesn't really seem to end. It just goes on and on and on. And I like this. Especially once you get the big names out of the way, because that stuff it's interesting. But it seems a little too obvious, a little too on the nose. This is where it gets to be really exciting to talk about, right? So the Thunder are going to be parting ways with Carmelo Anthony, which is something that we thought was going to happen. They're going to save a bunch of money by not continuing to have Melo on the roster. And so this is a smart move. And it's a smart move for both parties, right? It's a smart move for the Thunder because they're going to save the money, the cap hit of not having to pay him by buying him out of that contract. And Melo's going to be able to go to another team where potentially he's a better fit. We learned one thing from the Thunder last year, and that's that Melo's not a good fit for that team in any sense of the word. Part of it is that I wonder if Melo's actually a very good fit anywhere, right? Because Melo is past his expiration date as a basketball player. And I think we do forget how good Carmelo Anthony was in his prime, what he was capable of when he was with the Denver Nuggets and those early years with the Knicks. But Carmelo Anthony hasn't been good in about 4 years, maybe 5. And if you're going to say that Carmelo Anthony is still a primetime player and somebody who is worthy of attention and certainly worthy of being located on a championship caliber team, or at least a playoff team, you are saying a lot. Because Carmelo Anthony hasn't looked like a good fit anywhere. Now, he hasn't played on particularly good teams. He played on a very, very bad Knicks team for a long time. Granted, that was his fault. The way that he forced his way over there meant that there wasn't going to be talent for him to play with. But when you look at Carmelo Anthony and you look at his body of work, it's actually very solid. The problem is we just don't accept it. We just don't accept the gold medals that he has won, which he's won more than anybody else. His NCAA title that he won at Syracuse, we don't accept that. We're not accepting anything that Carmelo Anthony is out here selling us. And he has to now adjust, right? Carmelo Anthony is one of those guys that is past his prime and doesn't seem to notice and doesn't seem to realize that he's past his prime. He doesn't know. Like, he's the last person who seems to realize, I don't have it anymore. And you see this with a lot of athletes. Boxers, I think it becomes the most obvious when you just see a guy who's going out there, he's old, and he's just getting beat up. But in his mind, he thinks he can still do it. Like that's the thing. Like, your brain is trying to write checks your body absolutely cannot cash. Carmelo Anthony, in his mind, thinks that he can play at the highest, most elite level because he was in the same draft class with Dwayne Wade. And Dwayne Wade's fallen off a bunch also, but Dwayne Wade gives us moments. Dwayne Wade during this past playoff run for the Heat, I mean, that was prime Dwayne Wade for moments in that series. LeBron has been absolutely spectacular in his longevity. Chris Bosh played very well up until he had the pulmonism with his lungs and he couldn't play anymore because he had to be on blood thinners. But Carmelo Anthony is the only guy that I think that has completely fallen off, and he fell off earlier than all the other guys in that draft class that was considered so great. And when you look at it, you go, okay, what's he got to do to really adjust if he's going to play on a high caliber team? And I think Carmelo Anthony just has to take a step back. He can't try and go out there and be the number one scorer. Chris Paul has reached out to Carmelo Anthony And he was in Vegas because a bunch of the teams are in Vegas for the NBA Summer League. They're evaluating all the young rookie players. And he met with the Houston Rockets and he met with the Miami Heat. I think he could be a good fit for both teams, but he's going to have to take a back seat no matter which team he goes to. And if he goes to Houston and Chris Paul wants him there, he's really going to have to take a back seat because Chris Paul is still playing at a very high level and James Harden was just the MVP of the league. There's no way that Carmelo Anthony is going to be a first, second option on this team. He's going to have to be the third banana. My question is, does Carmelo Anthony realize, and is he aware that he is going to have to accept the role of third banana? He has to. There's no choice. He's clearly not in the same stratosphere as the other two guys on that squad. But is Carmelo Anthony still delusional? Does he still believe that he is playing at that high a level? Because it hasn't even been close. I mean, you look at Carmelo Anthony's game now, and it's a parody of what it used to be. He doesn't even run anymore. He just chucks up threes, and he's good at shooting. And I think that that's a very good fit for Houston. They lost Trevor Ariza, and they could really use a guy that can shoot to replace him. Granted, when you lose Trevor Ariza, you're also losing a guy that plays high-level defense. And Carmelo Anthony never saw a person in his whole life he wanted to defend. I am almost 100% certain of that. I've seen Carmelo defend people. When he really, really wants to, he can. But how often does Carmelo Anthony really, really want to? Like never. Pretty much never. And I can't imagine joining the Houston Rockets, he's suddenly going to change his mind when Mike D'Antoni, who doesn't coach defense anyway, and James Harden, who doesn't play defense anyway, is your best player and your head coach don't believe in defense. I can't imagine that Carmelo Anthony decides that he's going to roll up his sleeves and defensively get to work where to go to the Rockets. So I think that he's not 100% a great replacement for Trevor Ariza. But I do think that going to the Rockets gives them a three-point shooter, which they lost, and they're going to need, because everybody needs three-point shooters if you're going to try and hang with the Warriors. But is he going to get it out of his head? Because it's not like James Harden and Chris Paul meshed well together last year. James Harden did his own thing. Chris Paul did his own thing. Is Carmelo Anthony going to show up and think that, hey, I could do my own thing too? Well, you can't, because you're not as good as those other two guys. Is he going to be better? Is he going to be fine with less touches? Because he is going to get less touches. Is he going to be fine with being relegated to being a role player? Anywhere that Carmelo Anthony goes, if he wants to win a ring, if he wants to win a title, and if he wants to stay in the starting rotation of that squad, he's going to have to become a role player. And some guys take that more gracefully than others. That's not everybody's bag is backing down. It's not. It's a tough thing to ask people to do, especially with athletics at that high a level, the egos involved. You just don't want to admit that it's coming to an end. And Carmelo's really the guy from that draft class that we asked that question about, because Dwayne Wade accepted being a role player, right? Like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh played with LeBron. They accepted being a role player. Carmelo never had to accept that and is still, I think, struggling to accept that. And that's going to be an interesting fit. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Mentioned before that the Houston Rockets lost Trevor Ariza, and they're going to lose another guy. Maybe. But it looks like they may lose him. And that's Clint Capella, their big man, their center, and quite frankly, the anchor of that entire defense. Because you have James Harden, who doesn't really defend. Chris Paul's a really strong defender, and Trevor Ariza was last year. But you were able to hide James Harden because you could funnel whoever James was guarding into Clint Capella. And Clint Capella had an amazing defensive year as a rim protector for that squad. And he wants $100 million. He is a restricted free agent for the Houston Rockets. He wants $100 million. From what I understand, the Houston Rockets have offered him $60 million. So there's a difference in that money of $40 million. That is a lot of money to not agree on. And Clint Capella is going to get it from somebody. Somebody's going to offer that guy $100 million. Is Clint Capella a $100 million player? Offensively, I wouldn't say so. Defensively, he's certainly worth close to that. But Clint Capella could be worth $100 million to the right team. If you feel like you're close to being a contender, or even you're a playoff team and you just want to make it to the Western Conference Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, there's room for you to go out there and get Clint Capella. And I think that, first off, if you're the Rockets, you have the most to lose by not signing the guy. If he wants $100 million, look, by God, give him $100 million. And I know it's going to be tough for Houston. It's going to be tough for Houston. Houston has already committed big money to Chris Paul and James Harden. They signed Chris Paul $160 million for 4 years. They extended James Harden last year, $228 million for 5 years. He already played one of those years. He's got 4 years left on it. Like, they've committed long-term and big time to these guys. And I don't think that they're willing to extend the same commitment to Clint Capella. And I think that that's a mistake because he's a fundamental piece of their team. They certainly aren't anywhere near the contender that they are if they don't have Clint Capella back. And they didn't go out and get a big guy to replace him. If they don't get Capella back, it's going to be hard to even imagine a world where they go up against the Warriors and they're able to run back that last series that they weren't able to win. It's hard to imagine a world where that's the case, simply because he was their defensive anchor. And the Warriors can shoot the lights out. But one thing that they don't get enough credit for is how well they attack the basket and how well they exploit that weakness that teams have. And the Rockets didn't have that as a weakness, which is the reason why that series wound up being as close as it was. Steph Curry is surprisingly good at finishing around the basket. Kevin Durant is a pterodactyl, so obviously he's going to be good at finishing around the basket as well. So is Draymond. And look, it's a team that's very well designed in that way. You look at the way that Clint Capella was able to keep those guys not only off the glass, but away from the bucket, forcing them to jump shoot exclusively. That's where it gets to be dangerous. If you have to jump shoot and you are the Warriors, that's not a problem. But when the Warriors have to shoot threes and have to shoot long twos, and that's all they get to shoot, that's not the best version of that team. Right? Like, this is a team that is capable of getting to the basket and finishing as well. And there's nothing in that department. There's nothing in that department if Clint Capella's out on the floor. They have to bring him back. Like, where else could Clint Capella go that he could get $100 million? Well, there's a bunch of teams with a need for a big guy, right? Like, you could be willing to try, if you're the Pelicans, you could try for it. I know you've got Anthony Davis, but Clint Capella gives you a rim protector that actually plays more like your big plotting big. Anthony Davis is so versatile. He doesn't need space around the basket. He can use it, but Anthony Davis can also shoot. So that gives you two guys of length that you can really use. Clint Capella could go just about anywhere in this league. He could go to Miami. He could go to Toronto. There are teams that are up against the cap, and Houston's problem is that they're going to be above the luxury tax. But they're a contending team. And this is my issue with a lot of these owners, is that they are impossibly stingy. They are irrevocably cheap. That you are a contending team. Just go over the tax and try to win a title. You're already almost there. Once you decided to pay Chris Paul $160 million or whatever it was, what did you think was going to happen? Go out there and get a step closer to this ring. Because you're going to be playing in a league where LeBron James, he's playing on a Lakers team that's going to be young. They're going to have their bumps, their ups and downs, and their struggles. They're not really a title contender so far as we can figure out yet. And then you look across and you go, well, the Warriors are the only team to really challenge us, and we were the team that really were the only team that could challenge them. Get Clint Capella. I don't care what it costs. I don't care if you go over the luxury tax. Go over the luxury tax. It doesn't matter. Get a ring or try to, because you're not going to get this close as often as you think. You're going to be a playoff team forever. You've got James Harden and you've got Chris Paul, who's got enough years left in his prime that you're going to be good. You're going to be good. But without Capella, you're not a contender. I can tell you that much. Right? And then another player that's out there, you're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Another player that's out there that reminds me of Clint Capella is Marcus Smart. And I only say that because Marcus Smart is another, if you are really close and you have Marcus Smart, he can push you over the top. Marcus Smart, you sign Marcus Smart, like say you're the Nets, because Marcus Smart has been in talks with the Brooklyn Nets. You're Marcus Smart and you talk to the Nets. Look, I mean, he's not making the Nets a contender. But if Marcus Smart goes to a playoff team, like say the Spurs, and I say the Spurs can't hang on to Kawhi, they'd still have LaMarcus Aldridge. They still made the playoffs last year. If you add Marcus Smart, you get a defender, you get a guy who's a playmaker, especially late in games, who's very smart, if not incredibly temperamental. And I think that that's well worth at least some notion of paying that guy, because he's a put you over the top kind of guy, right? Like you're building something maybe in Miami. You might take a look at Marcus Smart. You're a playoff team and you're the Pelicans. You might take a look at Marcus Smart. I mean, the Nets are trying to rebuild, so it makes sense for them to look at him. But Marcus Smart doesn't make the Nets all of a sudden a playoff team, right? Like the Nets need a few other things to happen and go their way. But he does remind me of Clint Capella in that he puts you over the top. I think the difference between Boston and Marcus Smart, because there's a pretty big gap there as well between what Marcus Smart wants and what the Celtics want to pay him, is that the Celtics are so much deeper than the Rockets are. The Rockets already lost Ariza, and they lose Clint Capella. There isn't another big on that team that does that. If the Celtics lose Marcus Smart, it's not like they don't have guards on that squad. And they don't have guards on that squad that does that do what Marcus Smart does, but they do have guards on that squad, right? And they do have Kyrie Irving potentially coming back if he can stay healthy, and Gordon Hayward potentially coming back to fill in the production. The Rockets don't have anything like that, and they're in the West. And to me, that might wind up being potentially too much to overcome. And I don't know, if you're the Rockets, why it is that you are not necessarily going out there and just signing Clint Capella, making him a guy that's on your team. Look, I know he wants $100 million. That is a lot for Clint Capella. But we think of guys in this league that can handle the ball and shoot like we think of skill positions in the NFL. That obviously you pay the skill positions more. You don't pay your offensive linemen as much as you pay your quarterback. And we treat big men in the NBA like they're linemen. But that's not true. Like, big guys in the NBA are very specialized. They're not shooters. They're not going to go out there and score, most of them. Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, these are exceptions. Most big guys aren't that. But a lot of big guys are Clint Capella. A lot of big guys are Rudy Gobert. I mean, even if you look at this draft that just took place, a lot of these big guys are going to be Mo Bamba, really hard to score on. And quite frankly, in a league where you don't have a hand check, you can't touch people anymore, that is going to be huge. I mean, if a guy can't shoot, he has to go to the basket. And if you have a big guy that can block him, that automatically makes half of your defense much easier to play. Much easier to play. And it's alarming to me that the Rockets, a team that is drowning in data and drowning in analytics, can't see that how much better they are defensively with Capella than not. I mean, the numbers are all there to back it up. I say you go ahead and pay the guy. I don't know what aversion it is that owners have to going over the luxury tax. They're not millionaires. They're billionaires. They have the money. And it's not even a substantial amount of money so far as they're concerned. They could go over the luxury tax and not even feel it. For whatever reason, there's this pride thing that they have where they simply cannot go over the luxury tax. for whatever reason. If it's me, and again, I understand that I'm in that position where I'm telling a guy how to spend his billions, but if it's me and my team's close to being a contender, I go for the luxury tax, no problem. No problem. Now, granted, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if you're close, it's not like everybody gets to be close. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Actually, it's the Locker Room Show. Whatever.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chatter, Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
The Dalton man who was hit by lightning has died. Egan Stanley was celebrating the 4th of July at the Dalton Golf and Country Club when he was hit by lightning. He leaves behind a wife and 2 sons. Busted. A traffic stop leads to a massive meth seizure as Dade County Deputy Haley Getty pulled over a car for a window tint violation and no tag light near the 2459 split. Something seemed off about the car, so a canine unit was called in to sniff for drugs. Deputies say they found a half a pound of methamphetamine inside the vehicle. 19-year-old Josh Enzi and 21-year-old Jesse Odell both arrested. And Richard Smith has been arrested, charged with attempted first-degree murder. Cops say he stabbed Wesley Jackson in the back outside the Honest Pint. Jackson told the cops that Smith followed him on his bike and stabbed him 4 times in the back with a 3-inch knife. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Hi, David Toulis. I made the move, and I hope you will too. David Toulis, Nooga Radio, 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3 here at Nooga Radio.
92.7 Chattanooga weather.
Warm and muggy weather will continue out there through your nighttime with fair skies. Overnight lows only 70 to 73. More typical summertime weather returns. That may last for the next several days. Hot, humid afternoons, highs lower 90s with only spotty afternoon showers and storms. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world famous sauce. Open daily, locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's, it's always good. And I'm Storm Gene Walsh, Chief Meteorologist National 4.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
I got my business up and running and it's already expanding. I got lucky. Lucky because I found Signal Voice and Data. Signal Voice and Data can incorporate all of my business information sharing and communications seamlessly, keep my costs down, and let me work more productively with endless connectivity no matter where I might be. That's called working smart, not hard. Go to signalvoicetn.com and bring the future of communication to your business today. signalvoicetn.com.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop.
Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies.
The knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Toulis sent you.
Nooga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with? Eric, you're our winner. Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nooga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nooga Radio
92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Do you hear that? That, my friend, is not what you're thinking. That is the new 2018 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. Yeah, Indian. Indian motorcycle is more than a bike. It's an experience, an American icon. And Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga is the only place you'll find their new 2018 line. Are you ready to ride? Join the club. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign, 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Hey, Karen, you need me for that 1 o'clock?
Yes, Cheese, please. Karen, did you get the quarterlies done? Yep, they're filed in the Cabernet cabinet.
Karen, can you describe the initiatives to the new hire? Thanks.
Oh, sure. Full-bodied, some floral notes, maybe a hint of dark chocolate.
Am I in the right department?
Got wine on the mind? Come unwind at Virgola. Italian wine, oysters, caviar, cheeses, and more. Perfect after work or a romantic date night. Virgola Italian Wine Bar, 608 Georgia Avenue.
Chattanooga Paint and Decorating would like to remind you it's so hot out there. And guess what? Your deck is taking a beating. It's probably starting to show wear. If you're hosting friends for the 4th, get your deck entertainment ready with a fresh coat of stain and protect it from heat, sun, and rain with a quality sealant. If you want to get to work, Chattanooga Paint and Decorating want to help you. For exterior paint, stains, sealants, and supplies, stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today on Hicks and Pike across from Valvoline or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio. Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7
Nuga Radio. It's the moment you've been waiting for. Sam Jordan's Nuga Radio, 92.7 Sports. Now.
You're listening to the Locker Room Show with Sam Jordan, except there's no Sam Jordan. It's just me, Keon Rose. I'm filling in today, and then I get to do my show after this 1 o'clock with Keon Rose. So you get 2 hours of me. You're welcome. Or I'm sorry, whichever one works for you. I actually don't know. But here's the thing, because I was talking a little bit about the Rockets moving in the wrong direction, the Rockets being really the only team that could push the Warriors. I think the Celtics can. I do think the Celtics can, but the Celtics need health. And that seems hard to come by if you're Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving doesn't play whole seasons. But if you're the Celtics and you stay healthy, your starting lineup would be Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford. All those guys shoot over 40% from three. So they're designed in a sort of way to contend and compete with the Warriors, and the East is wide open for them. So I think we actually could end up with a very interesting NBA Finals next year. We all assume the Warriors are going to be there. I assume they're going to be there because they were there last year. People seem to assume they're going to be there because somehow Boogie Cousins is going to put them over the top. Boogie Cousins and his torn Achilles. Okay. But I think they're going to be there because they were there last year, and Houston is moving in the wrong direction. If they don't sign Clint Capella, if they lose Clint Capella, then they would have lost Clint Capella. They would have lost Trevor Ariza. And earlier today, the Clippers signed Luka Mbamute. So they lose another guy who's a 3-and-D guy, which I should point out, outside of James Harden and Chris Paul, 3-and-D guys is what that team was made out of. Clint Capella was your big man. Everybody else was a 3-and-D guy. That was the team. That was the squad. I don't know what the Rockets are going to be next year, and I don't know if they're going to be good enough to challenge the Warriors. We might just, if you are looking for a team to beat the Celtics, might just be waiting on, or to beat the Warriors, you might just be waiting on the Celtics to do it. It might just be them to do it, because who else would it be? If the Rockets can't do it in the West, I look at the rest of the Western Conference. Who else in that conference is equipped to beat Golden State? Now, I should also point out that health is an issue for the Warriors. Steph missed a bunch of time last year. He missed the first round of the playoffs. You have Durant, you'll be fine. But I don't know how good Boogie is going to be when he comes back. And they really can't afford for anything to happen to any of those other guys. It's not a guarantee that the Warriors make it back, because the more basketball they play, the more strain goes on their bodies. This is why it's so hard to three-peat. Even for the best of teams, it is incredibly difficult to three-peat. So I don't know exactly what we have in store for the Western Conference, and everybody acting like they already know is a moron. I'm just saying that the Rockets are moving in the wrong direction, and something that I thought was very uncertain is becoming at least a little bit more certain. So there's that. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. And So LaShawn McCoy is involved in some domestic abuse allegations, which is worrying and problematic. He had his ex-girlfriend tried to remove her from his house in Georgia. And she posted pictures of the abuse that she took, maybe from him, maybe not from him. It's kind of unclear as like when those pictures were taken, because she accused him of two things. One was the accusation that he hit her and her child and his dog. So just like all three of those things, like it's all lining up to where LaShawn McCoy is appearing to be very scumbaggish. And she released all of this stuff on Instagram, which is depressing to me because, I don't know, you want to get the word out there. Why does it feel like Instagram has to be the de facto way that happens? Because he responded to her allegations by saying that they were baseless and insulting. And he also made this response using the notepad post to Instagram. And I never wanted to live in a world where accusations and then denials of domestic abuse were flying across my face via social media, via Instagram of all places. Because again, for the last time, of all the social media that exist, Instagram is not the one that I ever go to for words. They go to Instagram and expect me to read. But anyway, she accused him of this, and I obviously, you take this seriously. The picture of her being beaten up was very brutal, but it could have been that, or it could have been from the home invasion to his house, and it wasn't her. It was her best friend, and the ex-girlfriend's name is Delicia Cardone, and the friend accused LaShawn McCoy of sending his guys over there to take his stuff and beat her up. And there was a disturbance on the property. She called the police because she wasn't home, and she saw the webcam and called the police. This doesn't look good for Shady McCoy at all. I mean, it doesn't even look kind of good. And I don't want to go out and accuse him of anything, because I think we do live in a world where we jump out and we make these accusations way too quickly. We jump out and, an accusation is made and that's it, right? Like we're just judge, jury, and executioner. We hit the gavel on that one and we close the book, and we don't have any proof and we don't have any evidence. Like we don't have any proof that LaShawn McCoy sent those guys over to get her, right? The guys did go over. That's true. But did he tell them to, or did they just go? Right? Were they just riding for their guy, or did he actually order them to do that? I don't know. We don't have enough to come down on that, but it doesn't look good. Right? Like when everything starts stacking up, this is not great. And I mean, we've seen enough domestic abuse situations in the NFL to where, you give guys the benefit of the doubt, and it doesn't really seem to work out, in large part because, and I don't know if it's right to go here, but CTE, I do believe, plays a part in some of these things. I don't think normally this is how people behave. You don't see this happening in the NBA. There are domestic abuse situations in the NBA, but they don't seem to happen like this, right? Like the Greg Hardy thing too, if you remember from a few years ago, where, he was choking his girlfriend on a pile of guns. Johnny Manziel got involved in a thing with his ex-girlfriend where, either she ended up jumping out of the car or he pushed her. It's a little unclear, but either way, like the stories that come from the NFL involving domestic abuse seem to be overwhelmingly more violent and crazier, just crazier. And I don't know what part CTE plays in that, and what part simply being an NFL guy plays in that, because Charles Barkley's told this story like many times, that he'll go out and he'll be hanging out with his athlete friends, because that's what happens when you're a famous athlete. You have athlete friends. And it's always the NFL guys that can't let stuff go. Like the basketball guys and the baseball guys, someone spills something on them. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they're a little bit mad. But it's always those guys that can't just let go. Yeah, okay, we've got a problem. Let's just hash it out and fix it. And that to me seems weird. That does seem weird. And I don't know if that's just the mindset of what it takes to play football, where you just have to be a little bit crazier than other people, or if CTE is playing some role in all of this. But it never looks good when football guys get involved in domestic abuse situations. It looks demonstrably worse, in fact. So we'll see. I mean, as more evidence comes out, we're going to find out exactly what the order of events were, because I was reading the story and I was pretty unclear. And I was reading it on USA Today and I was reading it on Deadspin, and I was still pretty unclear of the order of events, right? Like, when did the home invasion happen in relation to the picture that Delicia Cordon, the ex-girlfriend, posted of her being hit in the face? Like she showed like a lot of the damage to her face, and it's a lot. It is a lot, and it does look like someone who's very strong hit her a lot. And so I don't know the order of events there and to go out there and explain it, but as we get more information, I am not particularly hopeful that this is going to go well in the direction of LeSean McCoy. And if he's wrong about this, then the way that he dismissed it on Instagram is going to feel so much more cheap and so much worse. And so much worse. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM, the Locker Room Show with Sam Jordan, except it's not Sam Jordan, it's me, Keon Rose. And so the other big NBA story is Kawhi Leonard, because it won't go away, and until he gets traded, it will never go away. But one thing that I think is very interesting about this is that some NBA scouts that are interested in Kawhi Leonard, and including one anonymous Eastern Conference GM, has wondered why it is that Kawhi Leonard has not posted anything about where he is health-wise. He hasn't put out anything regarding his status, the status of his health. He hasn't put out a workout video, which was the suggestion of the GM. He hasn't put out anything. And the one thing that's stopping teams from really trading Kawhi, because Kawhi Leonard and Greg Popovich met earlier, and the reports are that Greg Popovich is fine with trading Kawhi, that he's open to the idea of it. He has hashed it out with Kawhi. And I remember saying this earlier in the summer, because I used to live in San Antonio. I have a vague idea as to how it is that the Spurs work, because they work in a way that's different from everybody else. Kawhi Leonard was never going to be traded without having a face-to-face with Greg Popovich. He's had that face-to-face, but teams are still reluctant to offer anything to trade for him, in large part because people don't know if he's really hell-bent on going to LA. If he's hell-bent on going to LA, then there's nothing that you can do to get him and keep him in your city if it's not Los Angeles. So there's that. But then the other issue of it is we don't know where he is health-wise. No one has seen him play for basically an entire year, and they want to know. And if he posted a video, the anonymous GM said that it would get 35,000 hits right away, and maybe 40% of those people would be scouts, would just be people watching to try and see, well, how is he moving? How's he shooting? They want to know. No one's going to really offer up the farm for Kawhi Leonard without first knowing if the guy can still play. It's too risky. And it's the reason why, even though the Spurs and the Lakers have been in contact, nothing's really happened on that front. Because the Lakers look at all the things that the Spurs want, and they're like, hey, you could give us a guy that's not any good, that used to be good, and we don't want that. And you do have some concerns about the health of Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi Leonard has boxed himself in with this scenario. He's really done a number on himself here. Either Kawhi is telling the truth, and he really was hurt that long, and just couldn't recover, in which case the scouts have to see him. They have to know whether or not he could play. And if he's been injured for that long, an injury that Tony Parker, who is 1,000 years old, also recovered from, then you have to worry about Kawhi's ability to recover from injury and his ability to stave off being injured again. You got to worry about it. I mean, there's no two ways about it. You've got to know that before you make a trade. But then the other thing is, if Kawhi Leonard was not telling the truth and he really wasn't hurt that bad, he just didn't want to play for the Spurs anymore, and he did that so as not to play for the Spurs anymore, then do you really want to offer up all of that for a guy who's a bad teammate and is flaky and whom you cannot trust, who will try and go behind your back and tell stories to make sure that he doesn't play for you? I mean, you're in a catch-22 if you're Kawhi Leonard, but you're in a catch-22 of your own creation. Nobody made you do this. Nobody made this happen to you. And he should not have done it this way. Look, Kawhi Leonard is a guy who seems to not understand how the modern world works. Right? And maybe he is old-fashioned. Maybe not. I don't know. But Kawhi Leonard's uncle, allegedly, is in his ear telling him that, look, you've got to be in LA to be a star. And that's not true. You don't have to be in LA to be a star. You can be a star in San Antonio. Just because San Antonio is not exactly the city and the team conducive to producing stars doesn't mean that you can't be a star in that city. Case in point, Russell Westbrook. Oklahoma City is smaller than San Antonio. It's a tinier market. Russell Westbrook's a Jordan guy, so he's got the shoe deal. Russell Westbrook, he's Mountain Dew commercials. He is a well-known player. Kids love him. He is exciting to watch. He's a superstar. Kawhi Leonard's problem isn't that he's in San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard's problem is that he doesn't say anything. He doesn't have a personality at all. And you put him in LA, I mean, you can try to make him famous, but you think Kawhi Leonard is going to continue to be famous in LA not saying anything? No. He's not going to get any more famous by going to LA while being quiet. That's just not how stardom works. People like engaging personalities. I mean, you could talk about Paul George. Paul George has been in some commercials himself, some Gatorade commercials and everything else, being also in Oklahoma City. And before that, Indiana. Again, small markets. You can be a superstar in a small market. But Paul George is kind of funny, right? Like he's not laugh out loud hilarious. Okay, he's not Draymond Green. Not Russell Westbrook, but he's got a sense of humor. He's got a personality. Kawhi Leonard does not have a personality. And it doesn't matter if you're in San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Toronto, or Los Angeles. If you do not have a personality, there is no marketing you. Zero. That's the Kawhi Leonard issue, right? And the other thing that proves to me that Kawhi Leonard does not know how to live in the modern world is exactly what that anonymous GM was saying. If you're healthy and you want people to know that you're healthy, that you're 100%, why not post a video of you working out? So many people in this world have started by just being online. Justin Bieber started on YouTube. This is the world we live in. People can become stars just by posting videos to a website that everyone can post videos to. And Kawhi Leonard has not learned exactly how to finesse the situation. It just appears as though he's gone, you know what? I want out of San Antonio. And then everyone's asking him, like, well, what do you want to do about it? He's like, make it happen. Like, that can't work. That can't possibly work. Like, if he really, really wants out, there's a million ways to do it, and they're all really easy and, like, don't even cost anything. So he's kind of working himself over on two fronts, right? Like, one, he doesn't need out. He thinks he needs out, but he doesn't. But even if he did need to get out, I mean, do everything in your power to just get out. Like it could, like you work a job that you don't like. I've worked jobs that I don't like. I got out. All right. I mean, he's got a contract and everything, but there's ways to finesse this situation. If you really want to get out, you can do that. It's easy. My thing is I can't wait for Team USA basketball. I can't wait for the Olympics. Greg Popovich is the head coach of Team USA basketball, and Kawhi Leonard is on the roster. And you know that I'm here for awkwardness. That's what I'm about. I'm about awkward situations with high-profile people because I want to know how they'll act. And I also want to know who's more stubborn. Because clearly, the rift between Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs organization is involved in some level of stubbornness. We know Greg Popovich is stubborn. We know he's really stubborn. How stubborn is Kawhi? How stubborn is Kawhi? What happens in those practices when Greg Popovich tells guys to do things and Kawhi doesn't want to? No, I don't play for you anymore. I don't have to listen to you. Because it's like you can't avoid him. There was a report that when the Spurs came looking for Kawhi when he was doing rehab in New York, he hid. He ran away. Kawhi Leonard's not exactly one to like confrontation, but I can't imagine that if you're playing Team USA basketball and you are there and Greg Popovich is there and you have to talk at some point, that Kawhi Leonard's going to really butt heads with Pop. But if he does, I promise you, there's nothing more in this life that I want to see. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Stick around. Clutch with Keon Rose. Next.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2,